Hello and welcome to the StarCommand podcast. My name is David Seymour, here with my good friend Alan Bragg, here to bring you all of the college and NFL football news, opinions, picks, all of that. If you could, before we get started, do me a favor and hit the like and subscribe, share this with a friend. Uh, Coming back off of Thanksgiving, man, I hope you had a killer Thanksgiving. I know it was your first time back home in a while, getting to hang out with all of your family and stuff. We got a bunch of conference championship games this week. We're leading into the college football playoff, and then we're getting close to the ending of the NFL season, getting for that final playoff push for some teams. Some teams are trying to hit that final. We need a good first round draft pick push. So it'll be interesting to see how all of this plays out over the next couple of weeks. Who do you like for the conference championship games today, Alan?
So I like my picks are as follows: Arizona State -1, Oregon -3.5, Georgia +2.5, UT Martin +17.5, and the University of Louisiana Lafayette -5.5. And a UT Martin game is they're playing South Dakota State, who's undefeated.
Uh-huh.
And I know how hard it is to go undefeated in college football, no matter where you're at. And the team they're playing in a championship game's got 17.5. So I took that.
Okay. And who was that last one?
Louisiana Lafayette
Okay.
-5.5.
You picked some games I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, so
I
Arizona
only
State
picked the major
-1,
games.
Oregon +3.5, Georgia +2.5, UT Martin +17.5, and University of Louisiana Lafayette -5.5.
Okay. So I'm with you on the Arizona State -1 and the Oregon -3.5. I really think that James, especially the Oregon game, I feel confident about that game. James Franklin just does not do well against top five opponents. We've seen it time and time again. He plays scared and conservative the whole time. I do like Texas -2.5. I just don't think Steve Sarkisian's gonna allow the same thing to happen. He's too smart of a coach, too well dialed in. I feel like he's been watching that game film from that first meeting with Georgia every day since that game, trying to figure out what it is that he's gonna do differently. And just I think there's no Carson Beck's turning the ball over way too much, and there's no way we get that many turnovers again and not figure out a way to win that game. So I do like Texas -2.5, and then I like SMU -2.5 as well. Um, there's been a huge narrative going about that if they lose to Clemson, they don't deserve to be in the playoff. They haven't played anybody. There's there's a lot going on around that game, and I think every time anybody's really started to doubt SMU this year, they've kind of really just turned on the gas and they kind of have everything figured out. They play good defense. They have a great running game, a high flying quarterback and wide receiver combination. I think they just end up being too much for Clemson, who's not playing great football this year. You know, I mean, they just lost to South Carolina, who's playing great football. So it's not like South Carolina's a slum right now. They've won six in a row. But I just think Clemson's not the Clemson of old anymore. You know, Dabo Swinney's refusal to use the transfer portal. Uh, it just he's kind of stuck. His kids are leaving to go to other places in the transfer portal, and he's not bringing anybody in from the transfer portal. And I think as we go along in the season, you know, the lack of talent on his team has shown itself. So I've got Arizona State -1, Texas -2.5, SMU -2.5, and Oregon -3.5.
I like them. I like them. I mean, the Georgia Clemson thing is, I don't think there's going to be because what you see pretty much a clean sweep of new teams,
Correct.
right? And I don't see a full sweep. I don't think that's going to happen. Where the upset's going to be, Georgia. I think Georgia may be able to uh filling off that miracle that they were able to pull off against Georgia Tech, 8 overtimes.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that just saved their season. They were dead to rights, and then so now I just think they come out loose and play some good football. But and Clemson, I don't know. I just hard to pick against Clemson in an ACC championship game. That just could be old stubbornness. But
All right. So who do you like this weekend in the NFL?
let's see. Well, let's go in the NFL. Great week last week, by the way. I had $100 ticket that would have paid $2,000. I was watching some Monday Night Football, but I cashed out. That Tampa Bay um, Carolina game was much closer than I thought, and it could have gone either way. So as soon as Tampa took the lead, cashed out. So, but anyway, $1,300. So big win last week. All right, this week's picks: Raiders plus 6.5, Browns plus 6.5, Eagles minus 9.5, Saints minus 5, 49ers minus 4.
Okay. All right. So did you on that Eagles pick, did you bump the point spread down a little bit by some points?
No, but I did put it in early a couple nights ago. What is it up to
Okay.
now?
It's up to Eagles minus 13 now.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. Which
No,
is cool because
that,
you got them minus 9, which is a
but I
dream.
don't have them. But I don't have them because I'm not in Florida.
Oh,
So
that's right. That's right. So
yeah,
you looked at
I was up
yours.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked at mine like Monday or Tuesday night, made my ticket, took a screenshot of it and was just going to send it to you. And
Yeah. Oh
damn,
man.
that's who is not playing? Did all the money just come on Philly?
I think all the money just there was one guy that a guy in Kentucky put $3.1 million on Philadelphia. I don't know if he took the points or if he just took them to win, but
Wow.
yeah, the book said that they're going to be huge, huge Bryce Young fans this weekend. So, yeah, I like
I guess I need to change that pick. I need to change that pick to get a ticket out there. Hold on.
okay.
Or you go ahead. You go ahead and give me yours. I'll look and then I'll
Sounds
bring
like
it back around.
sounds like a plan. All right, I like the Bills minus 3.5, just playing great football right now. I like the Bears plus 4. Christian McCaffrey's out. Uh, Madison, their backup that was playing well, is out. George Kittle's banged up. Trent Williams is out. And I think the Bears find a way to win that. Matt Eberflus is gone, so there's not going to be any more late game meltdowns with 30 seconds left on the clock and no timeout being called. I like the Bengals minus 5.5. I like Miami minus 5.5. And then I like Cleveland plus 6.5 and Las Vegas plus 6.5. So that's Bills minus 3.5, Bears plus 4, Bengals minus 5.5, Miami minus 5.5, Cleveland plus 6.5, and the Raiders plus 6.5.
13 and a half is a way different.
Mm-hmm. Heck, 13 and a
So
half's
I'm
even
gonna
gone
swap
up.
it
It
with.
was only 13, but that was Friday when I looked at it. Yeah, they're
All
trying to
right.
get people to
So
put money
all right,
on
here go my
Carolina.
picks again. I'm replacing Miami.
You're placing
So it'd be
replacing the
Raiders
Eagles.
plus
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Eagles with the
Yeah.
yeah. So I'll get the Raiders plus 6.5, Browns plus 6.5, excuse me, no Eagles. Saints minus 5, 49ers minus 4, and the Dolphins minus 5.5. $200, three favorites. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Cool, cool. All right, so that was our picks against the spread for the weekend. We'll roll right into the college football because you mentioned it earlier. I'm taking all new teams to win their their respective conferences, right?
And wouldn't that be something?
And it is. Is it not interesting? Not even if they win, right? Is it not absolutely interesting that in every single Power Four conference championship game this weekend, there's a brand new team that's first year into the conference in that.
Yeah, brand new teams from what everyone would say would be weaker conferences,
Correct.
just and then coming over and immediately making their presence known.
Right.
A lot of that's just stars aligning, coaching where everybody was set up because Sarkisian's been there for a minute. He's got that thing rolling. But something like these one-offs, Arizona State out of the Pac-12, making it to the Big 12 championship. Um, and in Texas coming into the SEC, the mighty SEC, in the first year, it really is crazy that we could have new champions, first time champions in all these conferences. It's really something. It's going to be interesting.
So here's my thought on it. I feel like Texas and Oregon being in the Big Ten and SEC championship are way more surprising or noteworthy than say ASU, Arizona State and SMU being in theirs. And the reason I say that is Arizona State came from the Pac-12, which has been known to be a weak conference, doesn't play defense or whatever, but they joined the Big 12, which has kind of had the same kind of connotation on it, right? High flying offense, not a lot of defense. So, and then SMU joining the ACC. Now, for me, it's a little bit bigger than Arizona State joining or being in the Big 12 because SMU's kind of been an afterthought, right? They were really good way back in the 70s and 80s, and then they became the first and only program to ever get a death penalty for all of their NCAA violations. Couldn't play football for like 20 years. You know,
They were on that NIL before everybody else was on
yeah,
the NIL.
and they weren't scared about the NIL. They just said, we're going to pay everybody and screw you. You know, what are you going to do? We can't play in a bowl game. It's all right. We're still going to have a lot of fun, and
You get a suitcase full of cash. You get a suit. You get a
right.
car.
They were playing Oprah before Oprah was even thought of. Yeah.
They got hey, so was everybody else. They got caught,
Yeah.
which made everyone else reel it back in.
Yeah.
But
When
yeah,
they
they
lose
got
their
caught big
football
time.
program, everybody kind of goes back to doing things on the sly, and so they've only been back to playing football for, I don't know, 15 years or so. I don't even know if it's that long. But and to see their progression, as a university to come back and restart everything and get to where they are, I think it's amazing, but I don't know. I know that, Texas has known that they were going to join the SEC for a little bit, and Sarkisian's really been building that team since he got there to be an SEC team. And it shows, especially if you look at Texas and Oklahoma joined the SEC the same time, same year. And if you look at the difference in them, right? Oklahoma's been building their team to win the Big 12, while Texas has been building theirs to win the SEC. And if you look at the records and, Oklahoma had the big win against Alabama, but they struggled in the SEC this year, and so I just find it very interesting that we could have four teams joining brand new conferences and winning their conference championship year one. It's just
Boy,
kind of mind blowing.
what a good year for these teams to be matching up against their opponents too. Like you normally, if you got Clemson in the ACC championship game, watch out whoever they're playing.
Right.
But everyone knows SMU's got a chance in that game. Clemson is
Well,
not
they're
Clemson boat.
favored.
So there, yeah, it's like hey,
As a
you
matter of
running into
fact, did not
no undefeated Florida State.
every brand new or every conference championship has a brand new team in it. Every brand new team is the favored team to win
Yes,
it.
that's great. You're not meeting up against one of the juggernaut Florida State teams in their years, the Clemson era where they just were dominant, and then you got your one-offs like Miami. But what a good
Right.
year! You got just a barely above average Clemson team that can probably fight you out and win a close game, keep it close with their defense. But and then Texas, Georgia, or excuse me, same thing up in the Big Ten.
Right.
With Penn State, there's no juggernaut Michigan team there. There's no juggernaut Ohio State. It's a good, solid Penn State team, but
Right.
you take that. Let's take that for a conference championship.
Yeah.
So, and I
And
was going to say it's the juggernaut in the SEC.
it'll be interesting for both Oregon and Texas, right? Because Texas has to travel to Atlanta, Georgia. That's where they hold the SEC championship game.
Be
Reports
a
are
lot of
they've already
bargaining.
had to give back a bunch of tickets. They weren't able to give out all the tickets that they received. So it's going to be relevant home game for Georgia, right? Which it usually is if Georgia's in the SEC championship game and it's in Atlanta. I mean, it's a Georgia home game, but and then the other one is
Be
Oregon
like if it
driving
be
at
like if it was in Dallas, right?
yeah,
And
most
then we
definitely.
may be seeing that. Texas, you go win the SEC, who knows, man? You may be seeing Texas getting a call. Hey, let's move this thing to Dallas in every
Right.
fifth year.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm sure Jerry would love
Start
that.
winning the conference. Start winning the conference, and you can start throwing your weight
Dictating the
around.
terms, right? And
Absolutely.
we do everything bigger in Texas. So go ahead, bring that SEC championship game home. But the same thing with Oregon going, the Big Ten championship games held in Indianapolis, Indiana, right? And so if you're an Oregon fan, are you really traveling from Oregon to Indiana? Or are you saving your money for the potential of playing in a national championship game? Or, there's so Penn State should have a better crowd. It should be, somewhere between 75-25 versus, a 50-50 is what we like to call neutral site games. But I mean, we all know they're never really truly a neutral site game out here because it's always closer to one team's home than another's. I think
Right.
probably the Super Bowl is the closest thing to a neutral site. Even in the years that Tampa Bay and LA played in their home stadiums and became the first teams to ever play a Super Bowl in their home stadium, the Super Bowl tickets are so expensive. Your average fan is not going to that game. That's all celebrities and rich dudes that really don't have a care one way or the other. They're just there to say they made it to the Super Bowl. So I think Super Bowl is probably the closest thing to a neutral site game. You get into these college games, it's always closer to somebody else's stadium, and that team's able to travel a lot easier. So um it'll
Yeah,
be it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out though. I'm excited for it. It's going to be fun. I'm ready to see this playoff happen. I guess Boise State just wrapped up a first round bye by beating UNLV last night. So that's crazy to me. I don't think that a Mountain West team should get a first round bye regardless. But
yeah, I agree. Nope.
so the other race that's happening right now in college football is the Heisman race. And I'm absolutely stunned that there's as much conversation as there is about who should win it. Um, I think Travis Hunter's the Heisman Trophy winner, and there's no question about it. And if he's not, then we have to not change the name of the award, but change what it stands for, right? Because right now, currently, it's the Heisman Trophy awarded to the best football player in college. If Travis Hunter doesn't
Right,
win
not
it,
the
it's
best story.
right. And if Travis Hunter doesn't win it, then it's no longer to the best football player because there's not a better football player playing anywhere. Forget just college. There's another a better football player on the planet than Travis Hunter right now. There's not a single person playing as many snaps as he is and being dominant at two positions on both sides of the field anywhere in the world right now.
Absolutely. Genzi's a great story. Even
Awesome
last night he
story.
had that big, huge run that he had over 50 yards, and you hear his stats and how many 50-yard runs he has, and the yards, and who he compares to, and how he's passing, and you get caught up, and you're like, oh yeah, that is a great year. And
Yeah.
any other year, comparing his stats to Derrick Henry last night. How he's passing him, and it's like, yeah, the kid had a great year, but he is not the best football player out there. There's a kid
No.
named Travis Hunter
Right.
that
Playing
can
both
out there
sides of the ball.
go get you three, can go get three tutties
and an
as
interception.
a wide receiver, and then just continues to play every snap on defense and make plays. And just
Yeah,
I
I don't.
completely agree with you on that.
Yeah, and I love
But
the
again,
actual.
Ginty will get votes. He will get votes. He will because it's a greght story, and
Well, and I heard an analyst who has a Heisman vote talking a couple days ago, maybe it was a week or so ago, but he said the problem with Travis Hunter is going to be is that Shadur is going to get a lot of votes too, and so they're going to split votes on as
But
being
I thought Shadur didn't make it. I thought Shadur didn't get invited to, or didn't. I could have sworn I
they haven't
saw.
even made an invitation yet because nobody's put in their votes. I think their votes are due. I think their votes are due this coming Monday, from what that guy was saying.
Then
Yeah,
I
it's the
misheard
Monday
that
after the championship game
report.
weekend. So,
Okay, got you. I misheard that report. I could have sworn they said that Shadur didn't isn't a finalist for the Heisman
I don't know. If I know Shadur's
because
making
they
his
got it
case for Travis too.
because
So
they. So how do they do the Heisman? Is everyone writes in their names 1 through 5 or 1 through 4?
I think it's 1 through 5. No, maybe it is just 1 through 4. But yeah, they all get a ballot. Whoever's the
Second,
first
third,
place,
fourth.
second, third, fourth, and then they tally it up. Whoever gets the most first place, you get points based on how many first place votes you get. How many somebody could essentially get more first place votes, but somebody else have more points in this voting process on how they do it. So
Right.
I don't know. I just think that if anybody watches football for real, and knows the game and knows how hard it is to play, that there's no way you don't just automatically vote for Travis Hunter. I don't care who else is out there or what else you've seen. I love the Ashton Gentry story. He gets passed over by all the big schools. Guess he was kind of undersized and underdeveloped when he was coming out of high school. That's why he ended up at Boise State, not somewhere else. And he's had an amazing year. Really, truly amazing year. Came close to crushing Barry Sanders records, and any other year he'd be the Heisman Trophy winner. And he even had an opportunity to leave after last year. He had teams that were offering him money to, seven figures to come be their running back, at bigger name schools with more prestige. And he chose to stay at Boise State for one more year and see what they could do with the 12-team playoff coming in. So I commend him for all of that, right? And it's great. It's probably going to be a first round pick. Probably going to go be a super stud in the NFL. He really is. But if we're going to say that this award goes to the best football player in college, then it has to go to Travis Hunter. And I take it back to the year that Peyton Manning's senior year. He had come back trying to win a national championship. He was trying to win the Heisman Trophy. He'd been a finalist a couple of times and really wanted to win it, and has just an amazing year playing for Tennessee. They miss out on the national championship, but they take Charles Woodson, who was also a senior and had played pretty much defense his entire career. And everybody said he'd be a Heisman Trophy winner, but he only plays defense. And they moved him to offense and punt returner for just a few snaps a game, got him a few touchdowns, not even near the amount of snaps that Travis Hunter's played. And Charles Woodson comes in and steals the Heisman from Peyton Manning by doing that. So we have the history of this has happened before. A two-way player wins the Heisman over everybody else because of playing two ways, because you were dominant on both sides of the ball. And Charles Woodson wasn't even near as dominant on the offensive side of the ball as Travis Hunter is. And so I think it has to go to him.
I concur.
So, we make picks every week, right? And do a little bit of gambling, but I don't think anybody gambles the way that Dan Campbell gambles, man. That dude is dangerous. Watching that game Thursday night, I'm begging him to kick the field goal on 4th and inches, and I can just see him over there chewing on his lip, and they go I think they called the timeout and go to commercial, and I'm like, he's got to kick it. He's got to have somebody in his ear telling him to kick this field goal. And they come back and they're going for it on 4th down. Come back out of commercial break and offense is lined up, and I'm like, this guy is ridiculous. They make it. It was a busted play that somehow Jared Goff got off, and they get the 4th and inches.
They tried to screw it up.
Tried
They
to,
tried.
but then what's
Tried to line.
crazy? What's crazy is you think, okay, now they're going to just kick the field goal. And instead, they run another play to get the ball on the other hash line. Right. I think they were at the 21 when it was 4th and inches. They gained probably 2 yards on the play. So now they're at the 19. Jared Goff runs to the side to switch hash marks and ends up at the 21. And I just can't believe that which hash mark you're kicking from when it's what, a 20 or a 31-yard field goal. It's essentially an extra point. Can't imagine that the hash mark makes that much of a difference for that kicker. And I feel like Dan Campbell was really just going for it on 4th down to stick it to everybody, to prove that his decision making wasn't a problem. And I feel like it's gonna be a problem somewhere in the future coming into the playoffs.
So yeah, there's being aggressive and there's being reckless. And that 4th and inches was reckless. It's reckless. You kick the field goal there. You then put everything back onto Green Bay, who now has to go down and score a field goal. Right. So they have to not only get first downs, they got to go put points on the board with no timeouts. You're really I I just don't understand. And then it just show the reason you don't is because even if you do everything right, you can do one thing wrong, like a lineman step on Goff's foot, and you don't even get the attempt, right? You wouldn't you and so kick the field goal in that case. And I heard yesterday from our man Cowherd that the three teams that go for it the least are the Bills, Chiefs, and Niners. Three teams that are consistently winning, consistently in the playoffs, and making it, especially Niners and Chiefs, as
Right.
far as you can go to the promised land. And they don't. They know when to punt.
Yeah.
Turn it back over the defense. Let's play. Let's keep field position. Field position is so important. But Dan Campbell takes it to another level. I wanted our offense to finish this. I wanted our offense to be on the field.
Right.
Yeah, that's good, but you also got to win.
And if you look at it, you're talking about knowing when to punt and playing field position, right? Earlier
Yeah.
in the game, they were up 17-7 and go for it on 4th down on their own 30-yard line, and give Green Bay the opportunity to get right back into the game. I mean, that was the catalyst right there for Green Bay to even have it close, because Green Bay was really getting their tails whooped in that game until they go for it on 4th down in their own territory and put Green Bay right in prime scoring position to go up, and it's those kind of decisions, right? Like, I'm cool with you going for it on 4th down a lot. I enjoy that, right? I enjoy seeing the teams like Philadelphia and Detroit and these teams that take these big gambles and go for it, and it pays off for them quite often. But you've got to know situationally where you're at and what you have going on. um you can debate all day long about you know Detroit not scoring any points in the second half of that game against San Francisco and how their players kind of dropped the ball, but really what cost them a trip to the Super Bowl last year was Dan Campbell going for it on 4th down twice when he could have kicked a field goal and put the game completely out of reach, right? And so at what point in time, we were talking on the phone yesterday, and I told you, I said the only saving grace is if they meet Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game, because the moment that Dan Campbell starts to throw his nuts over his shoulder and prove, try to prove that he's got the biggest cojones, Nick Sirianni's going to do the same thing because he can't let anybody outdo him. And so that could be his only saving grace, is if, if he plays the Eagles and Nick Sirianni starts making bad decisions to try to keep up with him and his bad decisions, because the Eagles are rolling right now, and Nick Sirianni's really kind of put the put the brakes on some of that going forward on fourth down. He started kicking more field goals when they were down in the red zone, and he's, you know, fourth and 3 and 4. He's kind of started to bring his punt team out. He's kind of dialed his gambling back a little bit, and I would love to see Dan Campbell do the same thing. I think it's exciting. I love that he's staying true to who he is. But man, sometimes you gotta play the smart move, regardless if it's what you want to do or not.
Yeah, because I think having your team's confidence is one thing, but thinking that like his team really believes they can get those fourth downs, and that's great, right? But don't
Right.
lose that. You can still keep that by kicking field goals. Your
Right.
team's still going to be confident. But going for it, what was it, 4 for 5?
Yeah.
Well, on the other night, 3 for 4, 4 for 5. That's
Three
just
or
a lot. I
four.
mean, 3 or 4. Okay, yeah, 3 or 4. Um, that's a lot. The one really cost you, and one was almost catastrophe with your quarterback
Right.
getting stepped on. So you were almost 2 for 4, and literally, why did you lose? Everybody would say those two calls.
Right. And that's the other thing is, yeah, cool. You got the fourth down, kick the game winning field goal, burn some more time off the clock so they didn't have as much time to go down and tie it. But what happens if you don't get it? They're going to just play for overtime, I would guess. I mean, they might try to get a couple of first downs early, but if it starts looking meager, they're just going to play for overtime. And what happens if you lose the game in overtime when you had the opportunity to win it outright at the beginning? And so I think somebody's got to get into Dan Campbell's ear. I don't know if Gamblers Anonymous will take him because he's not actually putting money on anything, but risking everything at the same time. But he's he's
But we say this, but honestly, I like good entertainment, and
yeah.
I hope, like we mentioned yesterday, that the Sirianni and Campbell go head to head, and they are just when nobody punts,
Nope.
punters get the day off.
Yeah.
There's
Don't
one
even
60
don't
yard
even
field
dress the
goal.
punter out. Don't even dress the punter out.
Absolutely not an option. Like, your kick, maybe you get a 60-yard field goal thrown in there, and just becomes a great up and down game. So,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, Dan Campbell got to do what Dan Campbell is going to do, and I want to see some good football. So I'm down with all the fourth downs. It's not, maybe I wouldn't do it, but I don't
Yeah.
have cojones, I guess.
Right. So
Yeah, I might though if I was football coach. I might just go for it every time. I don't know.
so speaking of, we spoke about the Lions and a little bit about the Eagles. I am under the impression at this point in the season, um, that we're at four and with a maybe fifth team as options to make it to the Super Bowl. We discussed the Lions and the Eagles already, possibly and most likely meeting the AFC Championship game. And then I really think it's the Chiefs and the Bills with the potential of the Steelers maybe being able to sneak in because they have been playing good ball lately. Just don't know if I quite trust them yet or not. But the Chiefs, I don't understand what they have going on. Really, they look horrible. I mean, just this past weekend they were up huge on Carolina, let them come all the way back so that they needed a game-winning field goal to win the game. It's almost like they need that game. They need all their games to just be close so that I don't know what they've got going on, but teams they should be blowing out, they're not, and I think they're just on cruise control to get to the playoffs. And so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, but I really think we're down to just four teams that really have an opportunity to make it. I mean, there's some other teams that, could get hot and wouldn't surprise me if they made a run, but really I think it's Eagles, Lions, Chiefs, Bills with the potential of Pittsburgh sneaking in, and only because Mike Tomlin's the head coach and they have a quarterback that's been there before in Russell Wilson.
Pittsburgh, yes. I don't know that I trust. See, I trust Baltimore more than I do Pittsburgh.
Okay.
I trust. I think Lamar Jackson would be my fifth team then the Baltimore Ravens, Derrick Henry, throw those guys. Lamar Jackson's going to get one eventually, right? I think
Oh,
you would. Most people would agree. The best player on the football field most games.
yeah,
I mean, he's a stud, and he's eventually you break through in the playoffs. You know, when you're a great player, it happens. So I think they're due for a run. They just have got to figure that defense out. And I'll add the Steelers in there. I had the Ravens, but I like the Steelers too. They're a solid football team. You're going to have to go. They're going to hit you in the mouth. You know they are what the Pittsburgh Steelers are, but they get competent quarterback play.
yeah,
And they got some weapons. So, but yeah, complete Lions, Eagles. That's two best teams in the NFC, and then Chiefs. You're and Bills. You know the Bills are well, who's playing better than the Bills, and who wants to go to Buffalo?
right.
They just dominate them snow games, don't they?
They do, and all they have to do is win out, and they need Kansas City to find a loss somewhere, and they'll end up with home field advantage. And
Which
that's
will
gonna,
happen. Kansas City's going to lose the game. Yeah.
yeah. I thought it might be this weekend, but J.K. Dobbins is out for L.A. So, and they just don't. LA just doesn't have any outside help at wide receiver. Lad McConkey's great as a rookie, but man, that dude's a two, if not a slot receiver, right? He's not a true number one. So, and then I think he might even be hurt. They're not sure if he's going to play. So, I don't know. I don't think the Chargers.
So that's obviously that's in Kansas City because the
Yeah,
Rams play in LA this week. Okay.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
So
might
yeah,
not
the
be
Rams
this
play the
week. Might
Bills
not.
this week. So
Yep.
and an interesting.
Bet we see a lot of Buffalo fans in that Coliseum.
Oh,
Buffalo
for
Mafia, Bill
sure.
Mafia.
For sure. You know, and that's the thing is
Buffalo
about these LA teams is they don't have neither one of them have any real true fans that show up to these games. If it's a an Arizona or whatever whose fans don't travel very much, you might get a majority of Rams or Chargers fans in there. But man, you start getting teams like Pittsburgh's and Dallas's and Buffalo's and all of these teams that have fans sprinkled out all over the US, but then they travel very well. And that stadium gets, they don't have a real home field advantage in LA for either team. Um, which begs
for
you to
sure.
wonder why they moved there. And I don't know. If you're not the Lakers or the Dodgers, you don't really have home field or home court advantage in LA. Any other team in LA, you know, it's whoever. So another interesting news to note from the NFL for those of you that haven't heard, there's a bunch of Senate meetings going on. Well, not a bunch of Senate meetings. There's a few people meeting with a few senators to try to bring back the old Washington Redskins logo, not the name. I'm sure the name will forever be dead, but they are trying to bring back the logo to be able to use as like on throwback uniforms and things like that. And it stems from the Native American Guardians Association, um, who's really fighting for the name and logo to come back. But I think they're willing to settle for the logo. So the logo is an actual Blackfoot Indian tribe member, and it was drawn by a Blackfoot Indian tribe. Or I'm sorry, the logo is a Blackfoot Indian chief that was drawn by a Blackfoot Indian tribe member, and gifted to the Washington Redskins at the time to be used. And so there's a lot of history and honor and pride for a lot of the Native American community about that logo. So there's a lot of fight to bring the logo back. I don't know that we'll ever be able to get the name back. That would be amazing if we could, because they're even fighting for the name to come back. But right now, I think they're settling at the logo. So that'll be interesting to see because at this about the same time as that's going on, the site for old RFK Stadium, which was probably one of the best home field advantages in all of football for a number of years. The stadium used to rock. People would be jumping so hard that the whole stadium would rock. And it's all federal land there in Washington D.C. and Dan Snyder was trying to get permission to build a stadium on that land and move the team back to DC, and nobody likes Dan Snyder, so it was always no and go to hell and all the different things that you could say to tell somebody we're not even going to consider that. And so now that he's sold the team and Josh Harris and his ownership group have bought the team, they have now approved that land to be used for a stadium if Josh Harris so chooses. There's no exact time frame for the stadium project to start or guarantee that it's going to be in DC. They're still looking at three different sites, possibly staying right in Landover, Maryland, where they're at now. There's a site in Virginia that they've talked about using, and then now they have the approval to use the DC site, which I really hope that they go back and build it right where RFK was, bring back the logo, and we can get back to playing real Washington Redskins football. Even if we don't get to carry that name anymore, we can play like we did back in those days. You know, we've kind of already started. This turnaround that we've had so far this season's been amazing. And I think we have a lot to look forward to and be hopeful for. And this is just one more
Let
thing.
me ask you, are you guys, would they be building a dome?
I don't know if they would or not. I haven't seen any projections for what kind of stadium that they would build.
I mean, I think you got it, right? Like, this is your opportunity
Right,
to
because we've
get
never had
that.
a Super Bowl, and we won't get a Super Bowl unless we build a dome because the weather in
Right.
DC during the wintertime does not. I was
So there's
explaining to
there's
somebody
so
not
much
too
more
long ago that,
payoff for that dome.
yeah, I was explaining to
Year-round
somebody
events.
not too long ago that the only people that get Super Bowls are teams that have domes or teams that play in warm weather climate. And so even if we played with a retractable dome, or something like that, where we could have that real home field advantage during the playoffs, keep it cold and snowy and all of that stuff with the roof open during the wintertime, and then be able to close it for a Super Bowl, that would be really cool. But yeah, I haven't seen any projections for what a stadium would look like. Um, I don't know if they've even gotten that far into the planning stage or if we're just still trying to figure out the site right now, and then we'll figure out the stadium and what it's going to look like and all of that later. But I do know it's coming. That's one of the things that was at the top of Josh Harris's list to do. Put a winning team on the field, and then to get a new field. Because the truth is our stadium's been a dump for years. The field's been horrible for years. I mean, you go all the way back to RG3 time, play on a home playoff game, and because of how sloppy the field was, is why he ended up tearing his ACL. It was a non-contact tear, and there's been a lot of reports of injuries like that happening on our field. So it'll be great for us to get a new stadium and kind of be relevant in the world of sports again when it comes to that kind of thing. People wanting to come to Washington to play because we've got the team on the field and the facilities to match. It'll be nice. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Way to go, Washington.
Oh,
Okay, he's halfway. Josh Pierce is halfway there. He's got the winning team. That happened fast.
right.
Now let's see how he can get that whatever kind of stadium. I imagine it's got to be a dome. So much more money can be made in the winter.
Yeah,
Concerts, events. You can host college games.
most definitely. Yeah. So you got anything else for us today, Alan?
No, I'm good.
All right, man. Well, with that, the Star Command will be out. If you could hit the like, subscribe, and share it with a friend or a family member, help us to get out there. And we will see you guys next week.